Content pillars and AI. How do the two mix together, you might ask? And I, for one, thought the same thing until I was reading a couple of recent articles in social media today, and I'm going to share those with you. We are going to start by talking about the much discussed content pillars, which you're all very, very familiar with. And if you've been following us for any amount of time, you've heard us talk about content pillars and how it is the baseline, the cornerstone of your social media strategy. And ironically, Social Media Today put out this article recently talking about this. This was actually published about a month ago, and it falls pretty well in line with what we talk about. And I'm going to specifically focus on this article today and start here with kind of a review of establishing and creating content pillars as you lean into a social strategy. Because oftentimes many of you lean into a social strategy, you lean into social without a plan. And if you lean into social without a plan, you're going to quickly find yourself confused. You're going to find yourself struggling. You're going to find yourself lacking creativity because it's actually a hell of a lot easier than you think, although it ends up being a hell of a lot harder for people because oftentimes your content is very much self-serving and not serving others. And that's where content pillars come into play. It starts with understanding your target audience. So let me digress for just a half a second and just remind you, content pillars are simply the various topics that you are going to build a consistent social strategy around. I call it your cheat sheet. You literally can establish your own list, a bullet point list of your content pillars that you want to build a strategy around, something that's like your reminder every single day of what you should be posting about. And it starts with understanding your audience. And so as this infographic shares, and we'll include links to everything that you're looking at. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this, you will have access to these links in the show notes. But it talks about understanding your audience. So who is your customer in terms of demographics? What type of content do they enjoy consuming? What type of content typically performs well with that audience? And where does your audience spend most of their time? And so I'm gonna use real estate as our example, as we often do, because it's an audience that we speak to often. But this applies to all businesses. So as you're leaning into a content strategy and you're thinking about what should I post about, and then you start to post about, let's say, for example, your latest listing, or you decide to promote something about who you are. Don't forget that I'm a realtor, and the best compliment you can give me is a referral, or you're sharing your award, or you're taking a picture with some happy clients at closing. You have to understand that all of that content is self-serving. It serves you. It serves your business. But that's not what your audience is interested in. So first, establishing what is their demographic. So, who are you selling your product to? If you're a real estate agent, typically your demographic is a geographic area. And so what serves them best? Then what is it that they enjoy consuming? And oftentimes you can figure this out based upon testing. You can test with your own various ideas on posts and see what performs the best. Oftentimes your audience is going to tell you what they enjoy consuming by how they engage with your content. And then, again, which obviously leads into what I just mentioned, which is performance. And then where do they spend their time? So again, is your demographic, is it younger, is it a little bit older? That will help determine maybe where you want to focus on which platform. So for example, if maybe you have an older demographic, you probably want to spend more of your time on Facebook and Instagram. If you have a younger demographic, you might want to focus a little bit more on TikTok. You definitely want to focus on Reels and short form. You might want to focus on YouTube. So establish that. Take some time to really understand this. And it's not something that you can sit down and figure out in 5 minutes. It's something that you really need to put some deep thought into, maybe even have a conversation with a coach or with some colleagues about this. Then you can do some keyword research. You can legitimately and very easily identify various keywords. And so You can do this by using platforms like Google Trends or answerthepublic.com to find out what your audience is searching for. So again, lean into those platforms. Just simply ask the question. And nowadays you can go to ChatGPT, you can go to AI, and you can ask very specific questions based upon a geographic audience, a demographic, an age range, whatever it is that you're focusing on, and then ask those questions to find out, where are they spending their time. From there, you want to sort your pillars of content. And so if you've ever seen an example of what I use as my pillar or of my cheat sheet, my pillars of content, which we will share a copy of that in the show notes as well, is that it's sorted in buckets. And so I've got these primary pillars, and then I have sub pillars that go underneath. And again, I use that as my own version of a cheat sheet. Who am I as a human? What am I doing every day? What should I be sharing? What should I be documenting? What should I be capturing more often? What should I be seeking? So in terms of types of content, so some of it is going to be stuff that you're already living and doing every single day. Other forms of content are going to be things that you're seeking. So for example, I peruse social media today, almost every single day. You as a real estate agent, you might be perusing local news. You might be perusing various real estate blogs, real estate websites, real estate news websites, those sorts of things, to find content that you can now be creating to use to target your audience. Maybe it's local events, things like that. But you want to then sort these pillars so that you can then keep track of what you're posting, because you want to have some sort of a cadence to doing this. From there, you want to write out there's a misspelling here on this giraffe graphic, but write out topics. So every month, beneath each of your content pillar headings, you want to write out some ideas. And so this really is just planning. But this goes back to the importance of establishing this first. If you don't establish this and you just treat your social media strategy all willy-nilly, you're likely going to struggle. And I know some of you listening to this, some of our loyal listeners are probably sitting here listening right now, and you've heard us talk about this, and you probably still have yet to actually sit down and create this. Every time I speak to an audience, I will tell them this is homework. When you walk away from me talking to you today, I want you to walk away. I want you to, and maybe even it's right now in the moment, I want you to get out a piece of paper. I want you to identify your pillars of content. And again, if you need to see my examples, go to our show notes. We will have a link to mine there. And what this leads to is another interesting article that I was reading. This one is much more recent, which is talking about Meta and its use of AI recommendations. And so most of you are pretty familiar with, obviously, how AI is now integrated into our world. You're very familiar with the impact that AI is now having on social media. And what this article talks about specifically is how Meta has leaned into AI over the past year, and they've doubled the amount of AI recommendations in user feeds. So prior to AI, it was primarily using social graphs. It was basically determining who you are, where you live, the things that you're interested in, some of the identifiers that you actually put into your profile to then recommend content to you. But now it has started to shift to be more computer recommended. So it's AI recommendations. And part of this is because of the dawn and the growth of TikTok. So when you're looking at this article, as of about a year ago, Meta, so we're talking about Facebook and Instagram, they had around 15% of their content that was shown to users came via AI recommendations. And there was maybe 20% of that on Instagram. So about 15% Facebook, 20% Instagram. And it has since grown. So now Facebook's up over 20%, and Instagram over 40% of the content that is shown to you is AI recommended. And it talks a little bit more about TikTok here and basically the success that TikTok has had because its algorithm is focusing on each individual post and not who you're connected to. And it's really what it talks about is how it's a step away from social media and more towards entertainment, which is something that's very important and why your content pillars play into this conversation. TikTok has repeatedly noted that it is actually considers itself an entertainment network, not a social app. And I'm going to say that again. TikTok considers itself an entertainment network, not a social app. And so when you're considering using social media for your business, this is the things you have to take into account, because here we are talking about how Instagram and Facebook Meta is essentially copying TikTok, aka moving more towards entertainment than actually being the social app that they were created to be. And so as we talk about this shift, this evolution of social media, here's where it gets really important for you, because, and as it states here, I'm gonna read this paragraph right here. It's talking about it's talking about how you can be creating content that will resonate with your audience. And so it says here, it says, well, really, it should provide some level of advantage for brands. So there's an advantage here for you as an individual brand, because while people are viewing more content on Facebook, they're also posting fewer updates themselves, because personal sharing is increasingly shifting into DMs, which we've talked about, how a lot of the connection through social media apps is shifting to DMs. Now, as a result of this, that leaves more room for the best content to get greater reach in the app. So in other words, the way I dissect that, the way I articulate that, is that more users of social media are actually going towards their DMs to connect with people versus posting, which is leaving less people posting, which means the people posting now have the opportunity for greater reach. This is a good thing. So then it goes on to say, if you create good, entertaining content, and once again, entertaining content, especially when you're using the Reels feature. So it even says here, Meta says that Reels has seen a 24% increase in total time spent on Instagram. I believe that. You stand a good chance to get more reach in either app, with its algorithm now looking to showcase more content to people outside of their direct audience. So the apps, through this AI recommendations, it's not about who you follow necessarily anymore, as the apps, the percentages of what's being shown is now is increasingly becoming AI recommended, which means you're increasing the opportunity that your content is going to get seen to people that are not already your friends, that are not already your followers, which now increases the opportunity to grow your following and potentially create new customers. And so it says topical thematic content aligned with your audience's interests could actually see more reach as a result. This is very important, with Meta also noting that users are now resharing Reels. Check this out. Users are now resharing Reels more than 2 billion times per day. That's a 100% increase over the last 6 months. Reels are getting shared 2 billion times a day. Are your Reels getting shared? If your Reels are not getting shared and you're creating them consistently, here's a simple answer. You need to probably shift your content strategy. Your content is not interesting enough for your audience to share it. It might be too self-serving. That could be the problem. And so this is where exactly why you have to lean back into those content pillars to help you identify what type of content you should be creating that might now become more shareable. Because as that starts to happen, the algorithm takes notice, and it now increases your potential reach to new people. It ends by saying, of course, creating entertaining content isn't necessarily easy. That's fact. It's one thing to say create content that your audience will love, and another thing to actually do it. Why? Because honestly, most of us are too self-serving to actually be able to see through the lens to understand what your audience wants. But the focus on Meta's AI recommendations is to show users more content that they're likely to be interested in, which is based on the content that's generating the most views and time spent within each topic. This could present new opportunities, and it's worth considering in your approach. It's not just worth considering, it is absolutely mandatory to do this. And so as you sit back and continue to, look at this new world that we now live in, you're looking at social media as this broad picture, and you're sitting there saying to yourself, man, I need to be spending more time on social. I need to be doing more of this. I need to press the play button. I need to be creating more content. As you're doing that, I think you really need to take some focus and really dial in what it is you're going to be creating content around that is actually potentially more interesting to your audience. And so part of that is going to be who you are as a human, which is going to create relatable content. Some of it might be very geographically related, which is going to be interesting to the people that live inside of your community. And then some of it, as you look at creating business content, probably needs to be more from an educational perspective. It needs to be something that is actually will resonate and be of value to your audience. That's not closing pictures. That's not you winning your awards. That's not you bragging about anything. It's not even sharing listings, because by and large, that's not of value to anyone that's actually watching, because they're not in the market to buy a home. So if you're not going to entertain them with said walkthrough, if you're not going to create the type of content that makes it HGTV meets TikTok, then don't bother doing it, because all you're potentially doing is actually losing viewers and losing followers and losing the opportunity to show up on their feed. So listen, if you understand everything that I just described, then sit down and spend time focusing on this. If you're still a little foggy about it, then you need to get more involved with us at Drunk on Social. This is exactly what we teach. This is exactly what we coach. If you want more interactive training with us, coaching with us, then just get into Social Genius. Get into the group coaching. You can go find us at drunkonsocial.com. You can click on the Hire Us button. It's very easy to find. It's very affordable. And we've got some really cool new options that are coming out that are only going to help you become a better creator, help you create more consistent content, and help keep you dialed in to what's working and the strategies that are best for you. I hope to see many of you on that back end. For the rest of you, just keep on listening. We're going to keep delivering everything and anything that is valuable to you and your business and your social strategy. And I will see you on the next episode.